We see a person check their points and get happy to see that he has 99,999 points, because he only needs one more point and then he can go home. Suddenly, someone shouts at him by calling him Healer to get his attention, and we see a woman asking why he hasn't gotten. He picks up the bag beside him and stands up apologizing that he was checking his mana. The woman turns around saying he should have checked it earlier, and he apologizes again. He now thinks that he was summoned to this world when he was in high school and had the ability of a spearman but got forced to become a healer, and has been treated as a heal shuttle for 7 years. But now he has almost collected the 100,000 points needed to go back to Earth. The swordsman in front of the group tells everyone to stop, and suddenly a spider attacks at his face, making the rest of the party worry for the swordsman Naruji. Upon realizing that they are facing a giant spider, they prepare for battle and tell the healer to stay back. The woman prepares a fireball spell to attack the monster, which screeches and rushes forward, pushing the swordsman aside, and attacks woman Arisa. The other man gets mad at this and throws his knives at the spider but misses. Naruji goes to the healer and tells him to heal Arisa, but he refuses, saying that if he heals wounds like hers, he'll run out of mana, which angers Naruji, who asks if he will let her die for that reason, and screams at him to heal her. The healer goes to heal and thinks that if he had gotten injured, they would have left him, and uses a restored healer and says that his mana is almost gone. The woman attacks him as she's angry that he talked about leaving her to die, and Naruji comes to stop her. The other man says that they would be in trouble if they run into monsters more dangerous than the spider, and asks Naruji what he suggests. And he says that it's suicide to proceed and says to retreat, and everyone agrees. As they move, the healer is angry that they can't even thank him for saving their life. But suddenly the man tells everyone to stop and that there's a treasure chest and asks to open it. But Naruji thinks it's a trap and doesn't want anyone to get injured for no reason. But the man says that it's worth taking the risk and opens it, and Arisa hopes that it's something good. Upon opening the chest, the man is displeased to find that it's only a few pieces of old leather, and Naruji tells him to take it and drops them for the healer to pick up. The healer thinks that something is strange, and as he picks it up, a glow occurs, and he screams in pain, and tries to use a heal himself, but Naruji stops him, saying he will use up his mana, and says that there are no injuries and asks if a bug stung him. But the healer complains that it hurts so much, and asks the man for help if he's trying to find an item to hide for himself, and Naruji tells everyone to stop and asks if he can get up. The healer says yes, but his head hurts, and Naruji shouts at him to stop whining and remember his role. The healer thinks that he needs to leave this world quickly. A masked man says that the healer suffered damage from a trap, and a woman says that this is too much to be a coincidence. But the man dismisses her, saying that he maintains neutrality as the game master, and the woman says to continue. A man asks if he needs to invest points in the healer, but the woman asks if the mage knows her feelings for bringing that worthless healer. And the game master says to continue and rolls a dice, and 2 dice are rolled, which give a total of 4, causing a failure. And the master announces that the party couldn't escape the spider. The healer spots the spider and screams to warn the others, and everyone starts to run. Naruji spots a bridge and says they'll be able to shake it off, and everyone runs on the bridge. Someone from the mysterious people says it'll be boring if it ends up like that. Naruji shouts at the healer to run quicker, but the spider is right behind the healer. A mysterious person says to cut the ropes as the spider won't be able to follow them, and then the woman complains about her healer being abandoned, and another man says that the healer is useless now, as he's used his mana, and Naruji cuts off the rope for the sake of the party, making him fall down. The Game Master is shocked to find that the healer has 100,000 points, and asks if he would like to receive the prize, and the woman is shocked that he's still alive, and she says to forget it as she's tired of raising him, cursing him. Hearing her voice, he recognizes her as the goddess who called into this world, saying the earth is in danger, but the Game Master says to conclude the game for the day, which angers him, and he opens the status window and gets the title, the one who escaped destiny, and he says to invest all points into healing and gets the highest rank and a great heal, and gets the title Master of Great Heal and uses Great Heal on himself and thinks about revenge. After walking a long time, he finds someone sitting, but as he gets closer, he sees it's just a corpse and takes the spear beside it. He spots a spider and grabs it, thinking that he needs to eat it to avoid ending up like that. The dice roll giving a total of 5, which is a failure, and he takes damage from poison in the spider. He now notices the sound of the dice and tries to eat the spider again, but keeps on failing and uses Great Heal himself and gets the Understanding Venom skill, and thinks that he will survive. A week later, he's eating a spider and keeps hearing the spider in voices and wonders about them, and gets angry at the goddess treating him like that. Suddenly, he spots water and rushes towards it, thinking he may survive. Suddenly, he sees a butterfly monster right next to him and rolls the evasion dice, and gets a success and dodges the Mossler monster's attack, and falls and continues dodging. He then grabs the spear and opens the status window and uses the attack skill Thrust, forcefully and gets a great success, and gets 37 points for defeating Mossler. He then pulls his spear out, but as he does so, the monster blood spills on him, making him suffer from poison, and he uses Purify on himself and gets the skill Venomologist rank B. And is surprised to learn that he can emit poison and realizes that he can use poison in battle too. Later, he kills a lizard and eats it, while a giant fish monster attacks him from behind and eats him, but he uses his poison to easily defeat it. He then noticed something, and a slime jumps in his hand, and he decides to raise it and puts it on his hand and asks to call it Thud. But the slime doesn't like that and asks about Lime, and the slime is fine with that, so he names it Lime. He asks Lime where the exit is, and it jumps off him and goes through a small opening, and he follows it and they reach a paved path. And he wonders what kind of place this is and reaches a giant iron gate and tries to open it. But it doesn't even budge, but Lime passes through in between the gates and it opens it from the inside. Lime then acts scared and he asks about it, but suddenly they get attacked by a huge monster, which grabs Lime, and he thinks to run away, but thinks about Lime, and decides to stand and fight to save him, which activates the Avenger skill. The Avenger increases his stats by 1 level and the monster attacks him, but he manages to dodge the attacks and is pleased to find that his strength is that of a D rank increased by 1 level. And he keeps dodging the monster's attack and uses Stab fiercely, but the dice roll fails and his attack fails, and he thinks that the surface is too hard. The monster attacks again and his evasion dice roll is successful, so he dodges it. He spots a violet blinking light and thinks that it's Lime, and thinks that if he can't pierce the monster, he will dissolve it with poison, and succeeds in the dice roll and injects a special poison hurting the monster. And he thinks he will finish it like this, but the monster attacks him. But this time his evasion roll fails and he gets affected by the lone slime's poison, and uses Purify on himself, but its rank is lower than the affected state, so it fails, so he uses Great Heal and is glad he is a bold gambler, which allowed him to survive for so long. He thinks at the spot where Lime is maybe the monster's core and attacks that spot, but the attack roll fails and his spear dissolves and he uses Great Heal, which has a successful roll and his healing ability gets applied as damage, and he defeats the lone slime and gets 1 point. He lies down thinking that he only got 1 point for all that, and Lime jumps on top of him and he gets happy that he saved him. Lime jumps away into a room and goes right next to a treasure chest, and he tells Lime to open it, and they find documents in it. He then reads them and finds that they were written by Dr. Geppetto, who endured hardships and ingested poison and developed antibodies. The people from before complained to the game master about the healer being useless as he died at the entrance, and the other man asked about going back to the village. But Arisa gets angry about going back after spending 11 days to get there. But the game master says that they should enjoy the content he's prepared, and Rogue says to give him a chance. And Haruji says that they should proceed as they have already been through the dungeon once and have enough potions now. And they move ahead. The healer has taken everything from the dungeon created by Geppetto and walks away with new clothes, weapons, and 51 types of toxins. While walking, he noticed something on the ground and recognizes it as the leather scrap dropped back then. And he realizes that it's been 53 days since he fell into the dungeon, and he finally returned to the location from which he fell, and remembers everything that happened, and gets angry. But then he calms down as he isn't the same person as before. Suddenly, the spider from before appears behind him, and he's surprised to find it still alive, and decides to fight it before facing his previous party members. The spider is the dungeon boss and is named the White Tyrant. He uses continuous thrust to attack the monster, but the monster attacks him back, throwing him away and bites him, injuring him greatly, and he uses Great Heal on himself and tells the monster to not be surprised by this level. The monster rushes towards him to attack him, but he blocks the attacks with his spear, and uses thrust to attack it, but the rolls fail and he realizes that he can't apply poison if he can't pierce it, and the monster grabs him and raises him up. He realizes that the monster's eyes are probably its weak points and attacks him with a successful roll, and uses Great Heal on himself and decides to focus on its eyes. He gets thrown to the ground and panics as he gets pulled by the spider web attached to his foot, which wraps around him and he can't cut them off, and he tries to use Great Heal but realizes that if he recovers in his current state, he would just die again. So he decides to endure the pain as the spider tries to bite him to eat him. He releases all his toxins and gets a successful roll, giving it pain, and cuts open the web attacks the monster, defeating it, and gets 540 points for clearing the dungeon, and is happy, and tells Lime about the points he got. But he sees Lime acting weird and asks what it's wrong, and realizes the change in his skin color. He opens the status window and sees the toxin side effects that he has skin damage that will last 48 hours. He realizes that in his current state, no one will recognize him, and he decides to leave the dungeon. Once outside, he tells Lime to rest in his pocket and enjoy the sunlight and shouts happily for escaping the dungeon. Suddenly, a person asks him who he is, and he gets shocked to see that it's old party members. Arisa looks down at his dark skin color and Naruji tells him to answer, and he says that he came 2 days ago with his party members to the dungeons, but all but him got wiped out and he thinks that the poison effects are enough to make him unrecognizable. Naruji asks him if the location of the dungeon has already been exposed and tells him to go his own way. One of the voices complains that the new healer died and the dungeon has been exposed. On hearing this, he gets confused and asks if he can get a share of the clear points, saying he's a healer, which shocks everyone. And the Game Master asks them about their decision and they're fine with it. And Naruji him about his skills, and he says that his Purify is D rank and healing is C rank, and they let him join and he thanks them for this. Inside, they get attacked by a Masura, but Naruji defeats it in a single attack, surprising him. And a fly head near Rogue, and the healer remembers Geppetto's journal, saying that it's a corpse bee which paralyzes for 2 hours, and dice rolls, which surprises everyone. And the fly stings Rogue and he falls to the ground, and Naruji tells the healer to check it. The gods say that he looks dead, but is just paralyzed, and one Purify will fix him. But the Game Master says that the party members don't know about the corpse bee, and using Purify on a corpse goes against probability. The healer hears this and thinks that the voices are playing a dice game, and kneels next to Rogue and says that his heart has stopped, and he's dead, and asks about burying his corpse. But Arisa says to not talk about burying people in the dungeon, and Naruji says to take the useful equipment and tells the healer to hurry up. Rogue thinks that if they leave him, he'll be at the mercy of the monsters. When the rest reach the Broken Bright, Naruji asks if he knows the way down, and he says yes, and Arisa leads the way. While walking, Arisa steps on a track and he saves her, and says that it'd be easier if she didn't cut her leg. Naruji attacks him, but he dodges and asks how he knows that, and the healer thinks that he's stupid for saying that, and successfully administers paralysis potion to Arisa, making her fall on her knees, making Naruji angry who asks about his identity. The healer returns to normal as 40 hours have passed, and he says that they abandoned him for 59 days, and activates the Avenger skill, and everyone is shocked to see him, and asks the moderator about it. Warrior is amused and asks the moderator if he prepared a revenge scenario for them, and he says yes, and the healer remembers it as the voice of the moderator. Warrior amused at a mere healer, trying to take revenge on him. The healer says that he will make it more amusing and uses continuous thrust on him and makes holes in his sword, and breaks it, which shocks the warrior, and he wonders what kind of magic that is. The healer gladly says that he isn't the same person as before. The warrior tells the moderator to use player points and brings out the weapon, who gladly does so. Lightning occurs and a hammer crashes to the ground, which shocks the healer. Thank you so much for watching. Please check out these other videos and make sure to subscribe and press that bell icon to know about our latest videos.